Hi everyone, I'm Danny.
And I'm Wombat, and today we're bringing you here to teach you a little bit about punks, rockinest, rollinest, rootinest, tootinest, ugliest, smelliest, dread-mulletiest, politically condescendingest subgenre, Crust!
Without further ado, let's jump right in and start with the world's first unofficial Crust band and everyone's problematic fave, Amoebics!
We should start off talking about Amoebics because they're really the first band to bring the heavy metallic riffs and sound with a dark, pessimistic, and intensely ideological like punk attitude and thematic content.
Yeah, while being heavily influenced by metal bands of the late 70s like Sabbath and Venom, but with like the aesthetic and attitude of Discharge and Crust.
We say unofficial because flash forward a couple of years from 82 to 85, 86 when Hellbastard releases their demo called Ripper Crust, formerly coining the phrase and giving a name to the face, sound, and aesthetic of Crust.
So in 1986, Hellbastard Ripper Crust was released. Absolute essential listening. Here's the cover. And then for some reason this happened as well in 1993. I don't know. Up next, also from the UK, the absolutely infamous
Anti-Sect!
Anti-Sect was active around the same time as the previous two bands, with In Darkness There Is No Choice being released in 1984. They were one of the first bands to be mixing this newly emerging, heavily metallic sound with anarcho-punk aesthetic and content. Hope, future, poison, by fear. Which brings us now to Deviated Instinct. Wombat, didn't they coin the phrase stenchcore?
Yes, stenchcore originated from the 1986 Deviated Instinct release, Terminal Filth Stenchcore, same year as Ripper Crust, so the terms kind of come about at the same time.
I really feel like with Deviated Instinct is when the aesthetic of crust punk really came about, with crust pants, just filthy hair, just everything, pure filth.
The hottest band in punk all time.
Hands down. And somewhat a fairly active band?
If you count playing like 3 shows in 2019, question mark. Now for the ladies.
Nice.
Behind the Realms of Madness came out in 85, and with Sacrilege, we have to kind of define what Crust actually is. Is it metal played by punks, or is it hardcore punk taken with extreme metal influences?
We love them, but they made some entirely unlistenable music in 2015. Okay, now let's talk about
Napalm Death! Starting in 82 as a peace punk band, they released a series of demos before their debut record, Scum, came out 5 years later. Pioneers of the grunt and genre are super important to Crust and pioneering the cave crust sound.
They look really fucking sick. Starting in 1985, one of the first ugly, grindy, thrashy, fucked up bands, Extreme Noise Terror.
The most jacked Crust band. Watch Raping the Earth music video for proof of how fucking yoked these guys are. The Chaos UK Radioactive Ear Slaughter split.
Shout out to Chaos UK on this. Sick pants.
And even very terrible self-titled full-length in 2015 that features 4 Guy Fawkes masks. and split with Reality Crisis in 2017.
Up next, we have thrashing crust icons, Concrete Socks. I'm pretty sure that this is just like at someone's parents' house, or at least I really hope so. This is some practice footage from 1991. Wombat, what's your favorite Concrete Socks release?
Probably Suicide.
Sick. I really like this Split with Heresy. Oh, sick. Sure.
UK hardcore legend. Now onto pivotal crust band Doom.
From England.
Although starting in like '87, I think that Doom is really important for kind of solidifying the sound of like hardcore simple crust, and Police Bastard is fucking great, and have continued to play semi-often.
Didn't you see them like what, 2018 or something?
Was good, still very crusty.
They really don't like smoking cigarettes.
Super not into it.
Oh look, they're playing with Concrete Socks.
That would have been an amazing show. Thankfully, we have COVID now and can never experience that.
Yeah, this is a great relief, honestly.
Really fun.
Yeah, so Doom formed at 87? Yeah, they have so many fucking releases.
Every Doom album is pure gold, but on Rush Hour of the Gods, they did have the incredibly regrettable Phadanophobia track, which includes the verse, "Kill a Muslim, kill one today." Like, we get it, all religion is evil, but
yeah,
come on, guys.
No, thank you. Okay, next we go to the United States, where there is one singular band responsible for bringing crust to the United States.
Nausea!
Yeah, we love New York.
We love New York.
Yeah, starting in the Lower East Side, Nausea, 85 to around 92. Incredibly important to American hardcore, American crust, punk in general, being heavily influenced by like, Discharge, Anti-Sect, and Sabbath, etc. Although they did give birth to a specific type of...
Profane Existence Blow Up is responsible for the terrible, terrible sounds of crust in the US from the 90s, late 90s to 2000 now.
We'll get into more of that a little later on.
Also, have to show big shout out for Misery. Although forming at the same time as Nausea, they didn't release anything until 91, but coming from the capital of US crust, Minneapolis, place that burned a precinct to the ground. So
yeah, incredibly fucking sick. And also everyone's gotta love the Misery split with Japan's SDS in 1992.
Now to the Paris of Appalachia, home of Skullfest.
Pittsburgh, to one of my favorite bands, House Rotten.
Important for every crusty from the age of 15 to 37.
Yeah, and this footage is from them at C-Scott in 99.
New York!
They were active since 92. But we just saw them play 2 songs at Skullfest 2019. It was meaningful.
I cried.
House Rotten was incredibly formative to me as well because it introduced me to Spitboy, who I've included here, from their tracks together on the Rotten Agenda. Nausea also responsible for influencing bands like Anti-Product from Upstate and Anti-Schism from South Carolina.
Anti-Product singer Taina now sings and plays guitar in a world music band.
That's pretty tight. Okay, let's go international again. What do you think about that, Wombat?
All right.
Let's go to Japan. All right, let's talk about Gloom. Starting in 1991, Crash Your Crust.
I would say that speed noise hardcore rags is mandatory listening if we're talking about Crust in Japan. It's hard to pinpoint what the first Japanese Crust band is, because a lot of Japanese hardcore, if it was coming from the US or the fucking England, would possibly be considered Crust because of the strong metallic influence and discharge type sound. But important early Japanese Crust bands would be Battle of Disarm, Gloom, SDS, etc.
Let's talk about Xynos for a second. I was lucky enough to play with them, I think last year or 2 years ago. But Wombat, you were at the Varney show, huh?
Yeah, was
How old were you?
baby Oogle. I was 16 and did not get let in until all of the, like, halfway into the set, when they finally let all of us toys who didn't want to pay to get in enter the show, and it was very important for me.
Yeah.
As far as like current Crasher Crust goes, Xynos has been going strong since the early 2000s and only made their finale in 2018.
Yeah.
That's important.
R.I.P.
Blood, spit, no teeth Crust. While the 90s in America is basically associated with the Profane Existence post-nausea sound, in Europe there was an entirely different thing going on with 90s hardcore Crust, Disaffect, Sedition, Hiatus, Scatha, Jobby Crust, just to name a few. I would credit Anti-Schism with the outbreak of the emo Crust thing of the 90s and early 2000s, which you Canadian losers probably know because of Ballast, Harem Scarum, Contravene, etc.
I like this stuff, honestly. You know, it feels important. It feels like an answer to Riot Girl in a way. You know, I think that is good shit, Wombat.
That Ballast record kind of fucks, though.
Hella fucks, definitely. I actually just got it. Like I mentioned before, there's a lot of stuff going on in the United States, and we're just gonna go ahead and jump over a few of these genres that are like the neo crust, ska crust,
stadium sound, until the later 2000s when the stenchcore revival started happening in North America with bands like Hellshock, After the Bombs of Montreal, etc.
And here's Hellshock at Alf House in Vancouver in 2018. Hi, Natalia. And now, bringing us to the present, even though there's not very much happening presently as far as live music, people have been recording some records, and I just want to at least give some shout out to some Crust bands that have been active within at least the past 5 years or so. So here in the United States, we've had Syringe, Ailment, Gino Guys, Decomp, Rigorous Institution, Zygome, Rosie, we love you, we miss you. Lifeless Starve, Napalm Raid, Tower 7, Geiger Counter,
Flowers.
Thank you, Wombat. Appalachian Terror Unit. Fatum. Sword Wielder. In Japan, we have Asocial Terror Fabrication.
And Life, who recorded a really good record last year. Also, major shouts out to Life for being probably the longest lasting Crust band in Japan, starting in '91 and continuing to play shows to this day. As we delve further and further into technological hellscape, the question of what is Crustmas future is something constantly on my mind. Increase of DIY music being based on technology and electronic abilities with the whole SoundCloud new alternative world and computer-made music of the future. I think Crust of the UK set a really good example of what might be the future sound with their drum machine based intense fucking punk that is super good. Also, they were barefoot the entire 2015 tour. Current bands and projects that are following in that suit of cybergoth, dreadfall, mullet future is Lilac from Pittsburgh and Lotion from New York.
Hopefully there'll be more.
Hopefully more, yeah.
Well, thank you for coming to our TED Talk, Rock and Roll High School attendees. You can subscribe to our Patreon.
Buck Cox. Peace out. Peace and love, peace and love, peace and love, baby.
Crust forever. Oh yeah, one more thing. The creator of the infamous chart strikes again. You'd think she would have learned her lesson the first time, and yet here we are, a Crust flowchart for all of you to enjoy. I can send a PDF version if anybody requests. Get at me.